She looked like every homeless person you've ever walked past without a second glance. Dirty hair, torn clothes, pushing a shopping cart full of what seemed like junk. But hidden among the bottles and rags was a prototype device that would revolutionize artificial intelligence forever. And the woman everyone ignored? She was the genius who created it, and she was about to change the world. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been living on the streets of San Francisco for 4 months, but not by circumstance, by choice. Her gray hair hung in matted strands around a face that had once graced the covers of tech magazines. Her clothes were carefully selected from thrift stores and deliberately distressed to achieve maximum invisibility. The shopping cart she pushed contained layers of calculated camouflage, empty bottles on top, discarded newspapers in the middle, and beneath it all, technology worth more than most people's houses. To the thousands of tech workers who passed her daily on their way to gleaming offices in Soma and South Bay, Elena was just another fixture of urban decay. They stepped around her with practiced indifference, their eyes focused on phone screens worth more than her apparent monthly income. They had no idea they were walking past the founder and CEO of Quantum Dynamics, a company whose AI innovations had quietly revolutionized everything from autonomous vehicles to medical diagnostics. Elena had built her $47 billion empire from a Stanford dorm room 22 years ago. She'd been featured on every major magazine cover, keynote conferences around the world, and held 47 patents that had shaped the modern digital landscape. But 6 months ago, she'd made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone who knew her public persona. She'd decided to disappear. The tech industry had become poisoned with ego, greed, and a fundamental disconnect from the people technology was supposed to serve. Elena watched from her corner office as innovation stagnated, as brilliant minds focused more on IPOs than genuine problem-solving, as the gap between Silicon Valley and reality grew into a chasm. She tried to change things from the inside, but her voice had been drowned out by the noise of venture capital and quarterly earnings reports. So she'd staged her own disappearance. To the world, Dr. Elena Vasquez had taken a sabbatical to focus on personal projects. Her company's board assumed she was developing the next breakthrough in some luxury laboratory. The media speculated about secret research facilities and exclusive think tanks. None of them imagined she was conducting the most important research of her career from a sleeping bag in Golden Gate Park. Elena's shopping cart was a masterpiece of concealment. The bottles and cans on top weren't just camouflage, they were a functional cover story that allowed her to move through the city unnoticed. People expected homeless individuals to collect recyclables, so her constant movement and equipment gathering drew no attention. Beneath the surface layer of urban detritus, her cart contained a mobile laboratory that would have made NASA engineers weep with envy. The centerpiece was a device she'd been working on for 3 years. A quantum processing unit no larger than a smartphone but capable of computations that would require a building-sized supercomputer using traditional technology. It represented the next evolutionary leap in artificial intelligence, a breakthrough that would make current AI systems look like pocket calculators. But Elena wasn't just developing revolutionary technology. She was studying the people who would be affected by it. Every morning, she positioned herself at the corner of Market and Montgomery, in the heart of San Francisco's financial district. Her cardboard sign read "Hungry, anything helps" in careful block letters, but her real purpose was observation. She watched as thousands of people passed by, each interaction teaching her something new about human nature, empathy, and the society her technology would serve. The data she collected was heartbreaking and illuminating in equal measure. Marcus Chin, a software engineer at a major tech company, passed her corner every morning at 8:17 a.m. He walked quickly, eyes fixed on his phone, earbuds blocking out the world around him. Marcus made $180,000 a year developing apps, but he'd never made eye contact with Elena in 4 months of daily encounters. When she occasionally spoke, "Good morning" or "Have a blessed day," he'd unconsciously quicken his pace. Sarah Williams, a venture capitalist, took the same route to her office every Tuesday and Thursday. Sarah invested millions in companies claiming to solve global problems, but she'd cross the street rather than walk past Elena's corner. Once, Elena had dropped her cup as Sarah approached, and Sarah had stepped over the scattered coins without breaking her conversation about disruptive social impact platforms. Jennifer Park, a marketing executive for a major social media company, passed by every afternoon around 1:30 p.m. Jennifer spent her days crafting campaigns about human connection and community, but she'd never acknowledged Elena's existence. When Elena had once asked for directions to the nearest bathroom, Jennifer had pretended not to hear and kept walking. But it wasn't just the tech workers. Elena observed everyone. Tourists who photographed everything except the humans in need, city workers who moved homeless individuals like obstacles to be cleared, police officers who saw problems rather than people. Each interaction was data. Each dismissal was information about the society her technology would serve.
The irony wasn't lost on Elena that she'd spent decades developing artificial intelligence while simultaneously losing touch with authentic human intelligence, the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of how people actually lived and struggled and hoped. Her device was learning too. Hidden in her shopping cart, the quantum processor was constantly analyzing not just technical data but social patterns. It observed how people moved through space around those they perceived as other. It tracked eye movement patterns, gait changes, emotional micro-expressions. The AI was developing something no laboratory could teach it, an understanding of human nature in its raw, unfiltered form. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning in October. Elena was positioned at her usual corner when a young woman approached with purpose rather than the typical hurried avoidance. The woman, maybe 25, had tears streaming down her face and dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice shaky. "I'm sorry to bother you, but do you know if there's anywhere around here I can charge my phone? I've been trying to find help for hours." Elena looked up from her device, studying the woman's face. Real desperation, not performative concern. "What kind of help are you looking for?" The woman, Mia, she introduced herself, had been laid off from her marketing job 3 weeks ago. Her savings were gone, her car had been repossessed, and she'd been sleeping in her office building's stairwell until security discovered her that morning. She had no family, no safety net, and no idea where to find resources for people in her situation. "Everyone keeps telling me about websites and apps and phone numbers," Mia said, "but I can't keep my phone charged, and even when I can, half the resources don't exist anymore or have waiting lists months long. It's like the whole system is designed for people who already have everything they need." Elena felt something click in her mind, not just intellectually, but emotionally. She'd been developing AI to solve abstract problems, but here was a real person with immediate needs that technology should be able to address instantly. What if, Elena said carefully, there was a way to connect people who needed help with people who could provide it, in real time, without bureaucracy or waitlists? Mia laughed bitterly. "That would be amazing, but it doesn't exist. Trust me, I've looked." Elena reached into her cart and pulled out what looked like a worn notebook. Hidden inside the cover was a thin, flexible screen, one of her prototype interfaces. Her fingers moved across it with practiced efficiency. "Mia," she said, "there's a community center 6 blocks from here that has emergency housing vouchers available today. There's also a tech company called ByteDance that's actively hiring for marketing positions and specifically looks for candidates with gaps in employment history." Mia stared at her. "How do you know that?" Elena smiled. Sometimes the best information comes from the most unexpected sources. She'd accessed real-time data from housing services, employment databases, and social services networks. Her AI had cross-referenced Mia's needs with available resources and identified immediate solutions. But more importantly, she'd seen firsthand how technology could serve humanity rather than replace it. Over the following weeks, Elena began quietly testing her system with others. She helped a veteran connect with housing services, a student find emergency financial aid, and an elderly man locate his estranged daughter. Each interaction refined her understanding of how artificial intelligence could amplify human compassion rather than replace it. The device was evolving beyond its original programming. Instead of just processing data, it was learning to prioritize human needs. Instead of optimizing for efficiency, it was optimizing for dignity. Instead of serving algorithms, it was serving people. But Elena's double life couldn't last forever. Dr. James Morrison, Quantum Dynamics Chief Technology Officer, had been growing suspicious. Elena's sabbatical had produced no published papers, no patent applications, no visible research. The board was asking questions about her location and activities. Morrison had hired a private investigator to track down the company's missing founder. The investigator, a thorough man named David Chen, had been systematically searching San Francisco for any trace of Dr. Elena Vasquez. He'd checked luxury hotels, exclusive research facilities, and private laboratories. He'd interviewed tech industry contacts and monitored financial transactions. He'd looked everywhere except the streets. The revelation came by accident. Chen was walking through the financial district, heading to an interview with a tech executive, when he passed Elena's corner. Something about the homeless woman's posture caught his attention, the way she held herself despite her apparent circumstances, the careful precision of her movements. He stopped and studied her face beneath the layers of dirt and deliberately disheveled hair. His phone was already dialing Morrison's number before he'd fully processed what he was seeing. "I found her," Chen said when Morrison answered. "You're not going to believe this." Morrison arrived within 30 minutes, accompanied by 2 board members and a security detail. They approached Elena's corner like they were conducting a military operation, which in a way, they were. Elena was worth more to quantum dynamics than most small countries' GDP. Her disappearance had cost the company billions in stock value and delayed projects worth hundreds of millions. Elena saw them coming from half a block away. She recognized Morrison's purposeful stride and the way he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to having his calls returned immediately. She could have disappeared into the crowd, could have abandoned her experiment and returned to her comfortable corporate existence. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. "Dr. Vasquez," Morrison said when he reached her corner. His voice was carefully controlled, but Elena could see the barely contained fury in his eyes. "We need to talk." Elena looked up from her device, her expression calm. "Hello, James." The board members stared at her like she was an alien artifact. These were people who'd known her for years, who'd sat in countless meetings where she'd presented world-changing innovations while wearing $3,000 suits. Now she was sitting on a piece of cardboard, wearing clothes that smelled of the streets, surrounded by the detritus of urban poverty. "What the hell are you doing?" Morrison demanded, his professional composure cracking. "The board thinks you've had a breakdown. The media is speculating about everything from kidnapping to corporate espionage. And you're sitting here playing homeless?" Elena stood slowly, her movements deliberate. Despite her appearance, there was something in her bearing that commanded attention. The passers-by who'd ignored her for months suddenly found themselves slowing down, sensing that something significant was happening. "I'm not playing anything," Elena said quietly. "I'm learning." She reached into her cart and pulled out the device, the quantum processor that represented 3 years of concentrated genius. In the daylight, without its camouflage of urban debris, it was clearly recognizable as something extraordinary. The board members leaned forward despite themselves. "This," Elena said, "is the most advanced artificial intelligence system ever created. It's been learning for 4 months, not from datasets or algorithms, but from direct human interaction. It understands poverty, dignity, desperation, and hope in ways no laboratory-trained AI ever could." Morrison's expression shifted from anger to curiosity. "What kind of learning?" Elena activated the device. The screen came alive with data visualizations that were both beautiful and complex: human movement patterns, emotional response algorithms, social interaction matrices. But underlying it all was something revolutionary, an AI that had been trained not on big data, but on individual human stories. "Show them the MIA protocol," Elena said to the device. The screen displayed a real-time mapping of San Francisco social services, but unlike any resource database that existed. This one was alive, constantly updated, cross-referenced with actual availability rather than theoretical capacity. It showed which shelters had beds, which food banks had supplies, which job training programs had openings. But more than that, it showed connections: how to help a veteran connect with someone who understood military service, how to match a struggling artist with a mentor who'd overcome similar challenges. "This is what AI should be," Elena continued. "Not replacing human connection, but facilitating it. Not optimizing for profit, but optimizing for people." One of the board members, a woman named Catherine Reynolds, spoke up. "Dr. Vasquez, this is impressive. But couldn't you have developed this in a laboratory?" Elena smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. "Catherine, would you design a prosthetic leg without understanding what it's like to have difficulty walking? Would you create educational software without spending time with students and teachers?" She gestured around them, at the street corner where she'd spent 4 months learning to be invisible. "I needed to understand the people this technology would serve. Not as data points or user personas, but as human beings with real needs and genuine dignity." As Elena spoke, a small crowd had gathered. Many were people she'd helped over the past months: Mia, who now had housing and a job, the veteran who'd reconnected with his family, the elderly man who'd found his daughter. They stood quietly, but their presence was a testament to what Elena had accomplished. Morrison looked around at the crowd, then back at Elena. So what happens now? Elena picked up her cardboard sign and carefully folded it. Now we change everything. 6 months later, quantum dynamics launched the most successful product in tech history. The Humanity Protocol wasn't just an AI system, it was a new approach to technology development that prioritized human dignity and social connection. It revolutionized everything from social services to healthcare to education, not by replacing human workers but by empowering them with tools that understood both efficiency and empathy. Elena's story spread through Silicon Valley like wildfire. Other CEOs began conducting their own immersion experiences, though most lasted only days rather than months. The tech industry started asking different questions, not just what can we build, but whom will it serve? And how will it honor human dignity? The device that Elena had hidden in her shopping cart became the foundation for a new generation of artificial intelligence, AI that was trained not just on data, but on direct human experience. It understood that efficiency without empathy was just sophisticated indifference. But perhaps the most important change was in Elena herself. She never forgot the feeling of being invisible, of having her humanity dismissed by people who claimed to be building the future. In every board meeting, every product development session, every strategic planning discussion, she carried with her the voices of the people she'd met on the streets. The most advanced technology in the world, she told a packed auditorium at the Global Tech Summit, is human compassion. Our job isn't to replace it with algorithms. Our job is to amplify it, to scale it, to make it more powerful and more accessible. She paused, looking out at an audience of tech leaders and innovators. And sometimes, to understand what we're really building, we need to step away from our corner offices and meet the people our technology is supposed to serve. Not as users or consumers or data points, but as human beings with stories worth hearing and dignity worth honoring. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Elena's shopping cart now sits in the quantum dynamics lobby, preserved exactly as it was during her months on the streets. It's a reminder that the most important innovations sometimes come not from the most advanced laboratories, but from the willingness to see the world through different eyes. Visitors often ask about the significance of the cart, about why a successful tech company would display what appears to be the possessions of a homeless person in their corporate headquarters. Elena's answer is always the same: because that cart contains the most valuable research data we've ever collected. It taught us that the distance between innovation and irrelevance is measured not in algorithms or processing power, but in our willingness to remember that technology exists to serve humanity, not the other way around. The quantum processor that Elena developed during her time on the streets was eventually licensed to governments and organizations around the world. It was used to optimize disaster relief efforts, match refugees with host families, connect isolated elderly people with community resources, and solve problems that traditional AI couldn't address because they required understanding human nature, not just human behavior. But Elena's greatest innovation wasn't the technology itself, it was the realization that the most sophisticated algorithms in the world are worthless if they're not grounded in authentic human experience. Today, quantum dynamics requires all employees, from entry-level programmers to senior executives, to spend time in direct service to communities affected by technology. They work in schools, homeless shelters, community centers, and senior facilities. They listen to stories, learn about challenges, and understand the human context of the systems they're building. It's become known as Cart Time, a reference to Elena's shopping cart and the revolutionary research she conducted while invisible to the very industry she led. The program has been replicated by tech companies around the world. The results speak for themselves: more thoughtful products, better user experiences, and technology that actually serves the people it's designed to help. Elena still keeps an apartment near the corner where she spent those transformative months. Sometimes, she returns to sit on the same bench, not as research but as remembrance. She watches the flow of people, the hurried indifference, the occasional moment of human connection. And she remembers that the most powerful technology ever created isn't silicon or quantum processors or machine learning algorithms. It's the decision to see another person's humanity and respond with your own. End of story. If this story opened your eyes to what's possible when we truly see each other, drop a like, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe to Silent Warrior Stories. Because sometimes the most invisible people are carrying the solutions the world needs most.